stay invested, do not panic, but focus on your domestic oriented themes, and that should be the mantra for 2025. And if that's what you are looking at so far right now, do you think it's also a good opportunity to diversify into other asset classes versus equity? What would you have to say to that?
You know, if you want to be a happy camper, we've been saying last 1 year, gilt offers a good return. At the end of the day, gilt will give you 12% return. In a falling interest rate scenario, it might even go to 14-15% return in the next year. So, you know, your threshold is really speaking a gilt fund with 13-14% return. Power transmission kind of REITs will give about 13% return. So that's your really threshold of a no risk kind of an environment that you work with. Therefore, you have to find stories in the market which can give you a superior return than a 12-13%, which a gilt fund can give you easily in this market. And that's the challenge going to be. You know, diversification, all of us are diversified. All of us own some real estate. All of us, thanks to our moms and dads, own a lot of gold in our portfolios or in our homes. So it's not that India, by and large, is a very diversified portfolio. Most Indians own a lot of real estate, a lot of gold. And I think that's adequate diversification. They have PF funds and, you know, fixed income, which is primarily invested in fixed income securities. So India investor is primarily diversified. It's a very few people who are owning equities. And I think they have followed a good mantra. We've done a very good job. The problem is that the sliver of people who are real investors in India who have the surplus to have diversification. You know, I tell you something, you people struggle to meet their end meet, forget diversification. So they're barely into equities, barely into gold. And therefore, the mantra back to the point is really speaking is you got to back your guts on an Indian story because export market is not our cup of tea. And unless policy responds dramatically, you stick to the theme. Diversification, we're doing well. We're doing well in real estate and gold. So Indians and fixed income, Indians don't need, I think, to worry about that bit.
You know, diversification, when we're talking about diversification, Ajay, we're looking at a time when interest rates are starting to drop. Interest rates are going to be dropping. Should people look at fixed income, or how should they look at fixed income? And even while we're talking about all of that, at the end of the day, the faith in equity and the returns on equity compounding is what everyone, you know, is now putting their confidence in as well. So is this the time to start shoring up for slightly longer term investments?
I do not know longer term. You know, for me, longer term is very short term. For maybe you, longer term is long term. And for my son, maybe longer term is truly long term. So I'm not sure each of us fall in different brackets of long term. But if the answer is, how do you play the falling interest game? As I mentioned, gilt funds offer you the best way to play this game because you will get the capital gain apart from 5-6%, 7% interest that the coupon comes with in the fund. So I think the best way to play the game of falling interest rate is the gilt fund, in my view. That's the best place to be in. And, you know, for the long term, again, I know the theory that long term will create value, I think is dead. Markets are discovering prices much faster than was in the earlier paradigm. Markets respond to new events much faster. And you have seen examples. Let's take an example called, I'm not recommending plus or minus, it's just an example called trend. You saw the ride from 2,000 to 8,000 to 4,500. All happens in 1 year. So I do not know whether buying select stocks, yes. I think a telecom story has done wonderfully well on a longer term platform, aviation story wonderfully well, hotel story wonderfully well. And what's the constant? It's the domestic theme story. So I think if you really want to go long term, perhaps you need to go to stories where there is a competitive moat, where there are one or two players and they will make a return for you. If you're investing in those stories, I think you can safely invest any point of time. It doesn't matter you're late to the game or early to the game, you can always average out. So if you look at the hospital story, the telecom story, the hotel story, the aviation story, 4 big domestic stories, all have given fantastic returns. And I think if you stick to this story for next 10 years, this is the safe haven for most investors. Indian population hopefully will become more richer and consume more services. And that's the answer perhaps to the conundrum where to put your money.